You're listening to ChainLeak, the crypto news podcast with your host, Joshuwa Roomsburg. Follow and subscribe today.
Welcome to the ChainLeak Podcast. I'm your host, Joshuwa Roomsburg. Today's episode is about adoption, Web3 Key Management, presented by Web3 Auth. Today's guest, Zhen, the co-founder of Web3 Auth. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey there, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so to get this episode started, could you give the listeners a breakdown of the differences between Web3 and the traditional internet that we know today?
So there's a lot of things on the internet, or a lot of things that people might say that Web3 is different from Web2. But what it really boils down to is the difference between Web2 and Web3 is ownership.
Okay.
And so, the difference between Web 1 and Web 2, when it was Web 1 was just static websites where people were just serving information to customers and stuff like that. But then Web 2 came about, and what the difference was Web 2 allowed users to start contributing to those websites. So like eBay, Amazon were all places where users would start interacting with websites and putting things up like
pictures and things for sale and things like that.
Exactly. And then when we transform into Web3, the core difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is that all of these Web 2 sites, ownership is owned and managed by the site that you're on. So, for example, when I log in with Google today, if I log in with Facebook, that data is actually kept by Facebook or Google, right?
Okay.
Comprehensively. And in Web3, the dynamic shifts from ownership by these entities of these assets.
From a third party to
individual ownership of assets. And this can be individual ownerships of financial assets in the form of like cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all like that all of those things that we're kind of a little bit more familiar with when we hear Web3, but it also can pertain to ownership of a user's identity, their data, and so on and so forth. And really, the underlying fundamental to all of that is just the cryptographic schemes and the blockchains underneath that.
So when you think about Web 2 authorization to log into your account, how is Web 3 authorization different?
So Web 2 authorization fundamentally rests on an entity saying that you are you. So, when you log into Facebook or you log into via email or even via Google, all of these things are either the email server or Google or Facebook telling the other application that Josh is, Josh at google.com or something like that.
Okay.
And that's just fundamentally how it works, because Google owns your stuff, right? And Google's the one with the private key pair. But when we shift that dynamic to Web3, the core difference is that the user now owns a cryptographic public-private key pair. And this is, they own it on their device, or they might own it on a couple of different factors that they own. This crypto public-private key pair is the thing that represents them. Instead of Google representing themselves, this user now says, I am me. This is who I am. Whilst it seems kind of like simple when we explain it like this, it has a whole host of implications when it goes upwards. So, I mean, one example is just one simplest example is just, like if you're on Twitter and you're logging into Twitter or something like that, Twitter can ban you, right? And then you lose your handle, you lose all of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of like in Web3, that's a lot harder for Twitter to do because you own that account yourself and you manage that.
Now, does it break down similar to the way that a cryptocurrency wallet is user owned? Do you get a seed phrase for a Web3 authorization account?
So you can. So be it a seed phrase or any other forms of wallet types, be it like a hardware wallet or a multi-sig and all that.
Yep.
They all have underlying public-private crypto key pair. So like a seed phrase is one way of managing it. That's what I say.
What is the main concept of Web3 Auth to where that is different than logging in with Google or say Facebook? When you go to a third-party website, if you have three different options, Facebook, Google, and WebAuth, how is it different, the product that you're bringing to the market versus a Google login?
So Web3 Auth actually looks and feels like a Google login. It feels like a Web2. It feels like a Web2 experience. When you log into an application with Web3 Auth integrated, you'll actually see Google, email, Twitter, any login that you might imagine. Now, how we allow for that and how we stay true to Web3 in that only the user owned and self-custodies their private key pair is that you know how seed phrases are kind of like a single factor account.
Yeah, like you get 12 words, and if you lose them, it's a wrap.
Exactly, and it's stored on MetaMask, or it's stored on a Chrome extension, or on a mobile app. And if you lose that device, similarly, it's a wrap, right?
Right.
And it's notorious for losing money all across. I think there was a study by Chainalysis that basically mentioned that 20% of all Bitcoin in circulation has actually been lost due to lost public-private key pairs.
Wow.
Which is an astounding amount if you think about it.
Yeah.
And basically what we do is it's actually very reminiscent of like usernames and passwords in the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Yeah.
Where people were losing accounts left, right, and center. The account takeovers. People thought that financial applications would never be built on the internet because the username, account, password was so fickle. But then fast forward to today, we have kind of like OTP, we have two-factor authentication, authenticator apps. The list goes on, right? And similarly, that's what we're trying to do with seed phrases. So right now in crypto, a lot of fear of self-custody. There's a lot of loss going on. And we're trying to evolve seed phrases into a multi-factor wallet. And it's powered by MPC. So like what we do is we just...
Let me stop you there. You said it's powered by MPC. Could you explain for listeners who may not have heard the term or understand the term what MPC is?
MPC stands for Multi-Party Computation. That in itself doesn't really explain much.
Right, not at all.
But all it really is it's the scheme and the academic principle that allows us to split a user's key into multiple different factors. And once we are able to split a user's like seed phrase or key up into multiple different factors, we're then able to store it in different locations and different access points that users own themselves. So that's exactly what Web3 Auth does. Web3 Auth just splits a user's public-private key up into multiple different parts and stores it on different things that users own.
Let me elaborate on that. Now, if it's broken into, say, 3 different locations, what potentially would be the locations, and how is that more secure than, say, logging in with Google?
Definitely. So when we split it into, let's say, 3 parts, right, we'll always have a threshold number of factors which are required to access or to access your key. In most cases, it's 2. So 2 factors required to access your key, like 2FA. Now, what we do, why we start with Google is actually Google is one of those factors. So you store one of those factors with your Google login. Then you might have your second factor that lives on your device itself. So either on your phone or on your laptop, wherever it might be. And then the third factor can be pegged into something else that you own. It could be like SMS OTP. It could be an authenticator application. It could be manually backed up as manual codes. It could be uploaded to your iCloud. But really, it's kind of like you know how like when you log in with your Google account and to the Google control panel and it gives you a whole host of options. It's exactly the same with Web3 Auth. You have a whole host of options to secure and protect your third factor.
Okay, now my next question is, what happens if you lose access to one of them authentication features that one of your thirds that your key is stored on? Say you lose your phone. You go tubing down a river and you lose your phone, or you're at the lake and you lose your phone in the ocean. What happens when you lose a device that has part of that seed phrase?
So when you lose a device that has part of that seed phrase, you don't lose your key because you need two factors to access your key. So as long as you have two factors, you can always access your key. And as long as you have two factors, you also can regenerate and create more factors in particular.
Okay, so, now let me stop you there.
Yeah.
So if two of the factors were, say, your Google account and SMS verification, what would happen if someone had the potential to do a SIM swap? If they were able to SIM swap you, get the text verification, and then on the flip side, be able to access your Google account because they have access to your phone number. How would you guys counteract that?
So that's definitely a vulnerability that exists, right? So like people's Google accounts aren't the primary way that people access their Google accounts isn't via an SMS OTP. It's via that username password combination in particular. And you would require your username and password as well as that SMS OTP to kind of like counteract and get both factors to your key. So if both are compromised, right, attacker does gain access to a user's polyprivate key pair.
Okay, now that's the only scary part, because back in 2017, I was SIM swap personally, and I still don't understand how this person got into my accounts. They SIM swapped my phone. I had two-factor authentication on my Google account. They were still able to access my Google account because my phone number was linked as like a backup for the some kind of verification, personal verification. So they sent a text message to my phone number. It disabled the two-factor authentication. They were able to access my Google account. So
that is definitely scary.
That's crazy. So overall in the industry, that's the biggest vulnerability we have at this point.
Yeah. Especially for like Web2 authentication.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And there's been more and more of this, actually, SIM swaps across the board.
Yeah.
Which have definitely been scary. Ultimately, for you as a user of Web3 Auth, what you might do is you might just choose not to set up SMS OTP. Like SMS OTP isn't a required factor for that reason. And we have like disclosures and statements on like what these different angles of vulnerabilities are. You might instead use a authenticator application. You could even use kind of like a YubiKey.
Because that was like Google Authenticator. If I didn't have that phone number connected to my Google account in the first place, which I've removed at this point, I'll never connect a phone number to any email account ever again. That was what I learned from that lesson. But the Google Authenticator itself, to log into my other accounts, I've never had no vulnerabilities with that. So you're saying you could have, say, a Google Authenticator in your mobile device or your PC as the secondary for your seed phrase?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And you could, yes. So I think what's the best setup, honestly, is you just have one factor, which is a social, that's your convenience factor. And your other factors are more kind of like self-custodial secure factors. So these include, these definitely start with your devices. So both your phone and laptop, you could use both of them. And then if you have extra, you could use it. Then you could use it you could even do a manual backup. So it looks similar to a seed phrase, but it's just a single factor of your account.
Okay.
Then your other factors to consider would be Google Authenticator, would be a YubiKey that you might also use.
Do you guys already have Twitter authentication
Yes.
implemented?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. What other social networks do you guys have implemented at this point?
So we pegged to this, all of the social networks live on this standard, this Web2 standard called OAuth, which stands for Open Authentication or Open Authorization. So we are compatible with that particular OAuth or JWT standard, which means that you can literally peg up any social, as long as they are also compliant with that standard, which most, if not all of them are. And so Discord, Twitch,
Telegram,
Line, Telegram, yes, as well.
Okay. Now, for an end user that is listening to the podcast today, could you explain why it's so important for key management in the Web3 aspect?
Mm-hmm. So Web3 accounts are like bank accounts, actually, and we should treat them with the same level of security because they hold your financial assets. That's what most people on like cryptocurrencies are doing today. It's not like a simple login where you're just like playing a game. Some of them do, but most of them are like financial assets, and you should treat it like and loss is a big thing in the space today. Now, we all start with seed phrases because that's the technically most simple thing to start off with. But, just like how a bank like requires you to do multi-factor authentication, requires you to have something a little bit more secure, like an individual token or something like that, the thing about self-custody is that it's great, which we own and we manage and we self-custody our own stuff and our own assets and all. But the double edge to that is we're also responsible for our own stuff.
Yep.
And unlike banks, where banks like go like, okay, if you don't set up 2FA, you aren't setting up a bank account. That's it. You don't have a parent telling you this with self-custody.
Right.
You're owning it yourself. You don't have somebody else like requiring you to do this stuff. But you really should in particular. And you could go ahead and try to get a hardware wallet, which would be similar to like a banking token, right? Because it's an individual device that holds and gives you access to your key. But you could also alternatively use a wallet that has Web3 Auth integrated with this multi-factor authentication.
Okay, that was the next angle I wanted to cover. Could we explore the different Web3 wallet applications that have the potential to incorporate Web3 Auth?
So, all wallets can actually integrate Web3 Auth. Web3 Auth in particular isn't a wallet. It's kind of like a wallet infrastructure solution. We are integrated into wallets and applications to provide them with this greater level of security as well as convenience.
Okay.
My cat's trying to sit on my laptop. So like some of the wallets that you can use Web3 Auth on today are, for example, Sequence. It's a wallet on Polygon. It powers a lot of games. That is quite a popular one. Kepler, that one is Cosmos' most popular wallet.
Yeah.
Kai, Tezos' most popular wallet. We are also integrated, and it's coming on GA soon with Trust Wallet. We just announced that, I think, a couple of weeks back.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So that's the second largest wallet in the space. You guys will be able to first use it on Chrome extension and then on mobile subsequently. We'll be MetaMask is also going to be a fast follow as well. So we'll be everywhere soon. Try us out on these applications when you see it.
Now, is the MPC concept also available for hardware wallets?
So it is in theory, but in practicality, it's a little bit tricky because it takes longer to implement hardware wallets have to comply with the standard. They have to have enough computation to do this MPC signatures. These MPC signatures are complex enough when you're implementing them on the web and on mobile. But when you're talking about hardware levels of code, you're talking about greater restrictions. And so like we are in talks with Trezor and a couple of others. Right now, you can hook up your YubiKey and to secure it, and that's kind of like a hardware thing. But for a true hardware implementation, either Trezor or Ledger or one of the other large hardware wallets, it would take a little bit longer. It's in conversations.
Okay. Now, is that because of the device itself, or is it a coding issue?
It's because of the coding issue. So it's because the hardware requires different sets of code and different stringent policies and resource requirements. So it's a mixture. It's actually a mixture of both.
Could you give a quick breakdown of what it would look like to use Web3 Auth on the Trust wallet?
Yeah. Actually, why not? I just share my screen and show you for myself, right?
Okay.
Let's go to Trust Wallet over here. Let me enable the extension. Okay, so I'm going to reset my account so that we can see what it's like to set up a new account on Trust Wallet.
Okay.
You can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, and I'm just going to talk through it as well so that people who aren't, viewing can also listen in and understand.
Right. Now, this is cool because this is something we could post on social media as well to give people a quick excerpt of what you're showing.
Absolutely. So let me reset my account first so that we have a fresh account for us to get started with. Okay. So this is Trust Wallet, and this is Trust Wallet with Web3 Auth integrated. First, you have you can choose between, of course, existing seed phrases or secret phrases, and you can manage a seed phrase yourself as per normal, or you can go with the Web3 Auth powered version, which is a two-factor wallet. Now, the two-factor wallet starts off with a social login, and right off the bat, you have 4 choices over here: Google, Apple, Discord, and Telegram. I'm just going to continue with Discord. And so first off, you log in with Discord, and I'm just going to authorize my account. I'm logged in this computer already, so the access is pretty simple. Okay. Now, as soon as I've logged in with Discord, I have set up my first factor. Now I'm setting up my second factor, which is what is going to be saved on the Chrome extension itself. So
that's going to be saved on your PC.
Exactly.
And that's the second part of the code.
Yes, that's the second factor. So now the third factor is being set up, and this is SMS OTP. And we have access to other app options that we could be setting up, like a recovery email or writing it down manually. Google Authenticator application will be coming soon as well. It's not in this build just yet. I don't have the latest build, but it would be available on GA as well. And you could opt to set it up right off the bat, like your third factor, or you could opt to set it up later. I'm just going to opt to set it up later so that we can go through more.
Now, this is another question I had for you right there. So you mentioned earlier that you could access the account with 2 factors. What does the third factor do for the authentication?
So the third factor is really there for redundancy. When the user has 2 factors set up, right? If the user loses their device, or let's say access to my Discord account, because I have Discord and my device set up, I would lose my key forever, right?
So you only need 2 of the 3. That's what you're saying?
Yes, you only need 2 of the 3.
Okay.
So the third factor that is prompted or that is required to be set up is really there because it's for redundancy. so that if the user loses one of the factors, which, we lose our phone from time to time, or we lose our account from time to time, you don't lose your key.
Okay.
So, after setting up 2 out of 2 factors, you can actually start using your account as per normal. Like, I can start, I can start putting money on Ethereum, and I can start topping up, buying NFTs, or interacting with the blockchain, doing whatever I want, right?
Okay.
And as I use this account more and more, I basically would set up more factors to keep me safe, and I can do so via settings, and that's basically the experience. Now, logging in and accessing my account once I've logged out, let me just lock my extension, right, is simply just logging in with that same social to access on a device which you already own. So, I'm logged in here. I've been logged in here before. So one factor exists on my Chrome extension. Let's say I go off. I haven't been using crypto for a while. I'm just hodling, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm coming back and I want to interact with it again. All I need to do is log in with my social, right? And I'm basically into my account. Because one factor was my social, the second factor was my device.
Oh, okay. I got it now, because the PC itself. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, what do you feel are some of the key challenges that companies and projects are facing today when it comes to authentication?
Yep. So I think a lot of people authentication is key management is a critical part of a user stack. And implementing more harder or more secure and convenient forms of authentication isn't something that's easy to do. MPC schemes require PhDs to implement and months of engineering and stuff like that, right? So it's hard for people to kind of upgrade their different wallet types. There's also difficulty in terms of migration, in terms of user education. And I think that's what we're also really trying to do here in particular. We're trying to share with users more modern and safer forms of account and wallet management, such that crypto folks also start expecting these more secure standards.
That was the next question I had for you was, do you feel Web3 Auth is about the security, or do you feel it's about the ease of use and the way a user would back up their keys? What aspect do you feel is more important, or do you feel they're on the same level?
So I feel they're important for different people. When with a lot of the new wallets and the new games and applications that we get integrated with, a lot of them want that onboarding aspect and want that convenience aspect, because that's what they're gunning for. They're gunning for mainstream adoption. They want people. You saw that flow, right? That flow seemed like you were just setting up a 2-factor account with Trust. Right. It was normal. It felt natural, intuitive, right? And
for an everyday internet user that isn't into crypto yet, that was the easiest way for them to set up an account.
That was comfortable, yeah.
Right.
And we've proven to be on applications and wallets. We typically the onboarding conversion rate for when a user downloads a wallet, for seed phrases is 23%.
Wow.
On our applications, which have integrated Web3 Auth, right, we bumped that to about 55 to almost 60%.
Okay, I was going to say 70, so you're getting close.
Yeah. With some of 70, but it's around that range, 50 to 60 to 70%. And that's literally 2 to 3 times an increase on conversion rates when users want to use your application, which is so important for new applications starting off.
And I feel like it's easier to explain to a new person that we're trying to bring into the industry. Absolutely. Instead of telling them, hey, you got to write down the seed phrase, put it in your safe, never lose it or you lose your money.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a little easier to explain. You sign in with one of your social networks, you choose one of the other two authentication methods, and boom, you never have to write anything down.
Yeah.
That was brilliant in itself.
Absolutely. And so it just takes that away. And you know, familiarity is not to be underestimated, because when it's not just about the onboarding, right? It's about post onboarding, when like the user already has this concept. Users already used to two-factor authentication, and they already have this concept in their head, which you don't have to re-explain to them. They just understand that, okay, I guess like I have it on my social, I have it on my device, I have my SMS OTP. I've lost my device. I have to log in with my social and SMS OTP. That is natural. Or like social plus Google Authenticator.
Yeah.
That's natural to people. People understand that, right? So like the second one is actually recoverability. And it's recoverability and security in particular. So like, you know, when a user loses a key, they're never coming back to crypto. You've just lost that, not just on like the wallet that you're on, but you're just never coming back. In particular, most of the time, it's
tough. I remember there was, I want to say it was within the last 2 years. One of my friends, he lost access to one of his wallets, and it had like $10,000 or $15,000 in it. And he was so upset and hurt that he said he was done with crypto. And I had a conversation with him. I reeled him back in. We straightened it out. But I said, that's why it's so important to maintain your private keys, because just as quick as he lost that 10, 15,000, people are out here losing $1 million accounts. Like you said, there's Bitcoin wallets that are equaling up to 20% of the total supply of Bitcoin that are gone forever and will never be recovered. So that's just mind blowing to me that for the recovery aspect, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and I think it's what it's what makes people nervous about self custody. It's what people. It's what has made adoption low in crypto in general, and it's what has made people also reliant on TX and all. You're just trusting them with this, and one could say that if we had better key management, people actually self-custody their product more, centralized exchanges wouldn't be required anymore.
How do you feel Web3 Auth is pushing to bring the next generation of cryptocurrency users into the industry? Do you feel it's the ease of use, the onboarding? What are you guys doing to onboard these people?
So I definitely think it's the ease of use and onboarding, but Web3 Auth alone, we are just infrastructure, and we just make it easy in particular. I think what we do to try to really get that end-to-end solution available to people across the world is really try to hunt out and work with the best projects and individuals that are serious about building real, tangible use cases for Web3. And these can include large enterprises and conglomerates. So, for example, we work with Fox.com, Universal Studios, Square Enix in Japan. These are large gaming and brand IP conglomerates that use Web3 to try to onboard their user bases and their IP into Web3. And it's great because these guys already have distribution and use cases, and they're just all about enablement, right? On the flip side, we also work with tons of small startups, like, for example, Zulu in South America, really looking to enable the unbanked in South America. We work with Jambo in Africa, which is doing the same and attempting to do the same there. Coin98 and their wallet in Vietnam, right? So really, and then BMO for payments for merchants. It's the vaccine passport, right? Really, I think Web3 needs more use cases, needs more solid experiences to make more low level. What Web3 Auth does is we allow for lower level use cases to become possible. So like right now, use cases have been mainly financial. mainly ownership, sometimes speculation, sometimes access to like markets, right? But at its core, sometimes remittance, but at its core, it's been financial. And it's been only available for financial because of the toughness to onboard into it, as well as, like other things like scalability, like gas costs and all. So that
Now
only,
this,
yeah.
yep, no. Now this is another thing. Aside from the vaccine passports, have you guys worked with any hospitals or doctors,
No,
different things like that in the medical field?
not yet. No.
Do you see the implications of using this technology in these industries?
So I think crypto and AI is something that's interesting. LLMs, a lot of the powerful ones are on servers, but people are scared about their data, scared about what they're giving up for using these LLMs. And user-based encryption and user-based and Web3 based authorization can help enhance and allay these fears in particular.
Well, because that was the thing I was thinking about personally is I have my medical application on my phone that I reach my doctor with, and I still log in with the email and password. So if we could implement a Web3 authorization to where I'm me, and that's all I need to log in with my phone and an SMS or something similar to access my medical records or to speak with my doctor, I think that would be a unique aspect as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. But I think it's more of like, that's a regulation thing. Okay. And the reason why I was a little bit more like, I don't know if we can hit that point is because I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, especially in the US, is how open are our government bodies to like talking about like saying that this is a accepted form of authorization and authentication, right?
Okay.
Like the US government, especially more in the West right now, is very anti crypto. That's the political narrative.
It's not up to the level of the rest of the world. I know.
Yeah, it's not. Who like if one hospital implements this, nobody cares, right? It doesn't get really adopted. It has to be on more
national level,
more national, or at least state. It has to be on a larger level to like one hospital would. It's like everybody knows it's better if we actually take a deeper look into it. It's more private, it's more secure, but like things don't move because the individual stakeholders don't have the incentive. It's like a public good. The individual stakeholders don't have the incentive to do it themselves.
To implement that. Yep. Yeah. Now, where do you see the MPC technology moving in the future when it comes to security, privacy, and usability?
So I'll start with usability. I think the schemes are going to get a bit faster, in particular, a little bit more efficient. There already have been large improvements in the last 2-3 years. When it comes to security and privacy, we've implemented some of the most recent schemes when it comes to revocation. So this sounds simple to you, right? To us, right, Josh, where we expect that if we lose one of our factors, we should be able to delete the factors, right?
Yeah.
Or we should be able to generate a new factor without compromising or making our account insecure, right? But when we boil down to like the engineering problems that these benefits entail, it's actually quite hard to implement. Like implementing, like no MPC provider today, apart from us, right, has resharing and revocability implemented on the retail level at this point. So I think that's where the industry is heading towards in terms of like security as well as in terms of account management. It's really being feature status quo with what people expect with two-factor wallets today. So revocability, which we've pushed out recently, as well as being able to refresh your individual factors.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Web3 Auth, you mentioned the potential for MetaMask implementation. You mentioned Trust Wallet. What would be the timeline for implementation into Trust Wallet or MetaMask?
So with Trust Wallet, you saw the application,
The demo, yep.
The demo. That one will be hitting GA hopefully in June.
Okay.
So it'll be hitting GA in June for people to play around with. For MetaMask, the expected line is in September.
Okay.
Yeah, that's expected. We don't know how dev is going to go.
Now, is there anything else you'd like to add to this interview before we wrap this episode up?
Not really, actually.
I think we covered a lot of bases. This was
I think we covered most things.
Yeah.
But it's just stay safe, everybody. And it's troubling economic times. So I wish the best,
Right. All right. Well, let's try to follow up in a few months and see where you guys are at and what new applications you have implemented this technology into. Would you be down for another interview down the road?
Yeah, for sure. Always
Okay.
a pleasure to talk, Josh.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.